Hey everybody, welcome back to Soccer Wise. Dave Vigas, Jordan Angeli with you for another fantastic episode. Jordan, this is our regularly scheduled show. We go every Wednesday live. If you are watching on YouTube, if you're listening via podcast, you can go to our YouTube page, subscribe, and you will get notifications. Unlike NWSL, which just is like, Tuesdays, you know what we could do? We could throw a game in there. And I'm not going to lie, I wasn't mad about it. It was a little late on the East Coast, but like, what else was I doing? I had no other plans. And all of a sudden, when the lineups came out and I got all the like social media messages, I was like, oh, right. That's what I was going to do later tonight.
Yeah, it does feel like it's nice to have just like a random Tuesday game. I think it's a little difficult right now. I'm from Denver, and two of our teams are playing in the playoffs right now. So it was like multiple screens. What'd you say?
Brag much?
I know. I only brag a little bit when it's necessary, and this is necessary. You know, it's just multiple games, and are you making sure that you can find what you need to find? But luckily for me, last night, the Nugs and the Avalanche weren't playing, so I did get to watch some of this game. But it's been a busy week at NWSL. It feels like, I mean, it's only been a week since we've chatted, but I feel like so much has already happened.
There's been a head coach hired, which I had to like go back and check our show notes to be like, did we discuss this? Because it has been, as you said, very hectic. 3 Friday night games, which was too much for me of just the overlap.
You like the one. You just like the one.
I don't mind 2, but like once the third started, I was like, well, I kind of gave up. I can't keep up. So I ended up, we will talk about Gotham in a little bit. I ended up watching a lot of the Gotham game because it's like, well, I already saw it from the start and like I'm already locked in. But yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming, I think.
Yeah. It was nice not to have, just personally, like not to have Sunday games and to be able to be home for Easter with my family. But it did feel like everything kind of happened quickly with the Friday games, and then there were early Saturday games, and it was like, okay, everybody's done now.
Weekend's over. Yeah.
It's over.
It was a unique one. The schedule goes a little bit more normal this weekend, although minus the fact that we had this Tuesday game thrown in there, which was fairly electric. So we will talk all about that coming up. And then we will talk about the weekend that was, and it was headlined by this NWSL Championship rematch. The NWSL Championship rematch was heavily affected by the walking wounded of Washington. Washington Spirit, 11 players listed on their injured list before the game even started. Then they proceeded to have additional injuries going into the game as well as injuries during the game. So we will talk all about that, their victory over Orlando, what it means, and then Kansas City standing alone atop the standings and putting together a season that does not look dissimilar to what we saw last year with Orlando and Kansas City at times, but mainly with Orlando. So we'll talk about all of that. Some of the other big moments of the weekend. Kiki Pickett only scores one type of goal. So if she's winding up, everyone get your cameras out because you know something good is about to come. And Utah finally delivered for you, Jordan. They've heard your pain and your angst, and they're here for you.
They waited to the last minute. I'll just say that too. They were like, this is going to be a 0-0 game. Psych. We'll score PK right at the end. But good for you, Utah. Finally getting that win.
Ali Sentnor getting the finish on that one. Nice for her to have some positive moments early in the season with the way it's gone and with the way she has worked. So a lot to talk about. And then I mentioned Angel City. They have a new full-time head coach. It will be starting on June 1st. That Alexander Straus will take over, Norwegian-born and raised coach currently in Germany with Bayern Munich. Looks to be on his way to a 3rd straight Bundesliga title. Over Wolfsburg, of course, is the big storyline with all of that. And so that is something that we will discuss because it is a major story. It has been like this weird opening that we haven't avoided it. We just didn't know much about it. And Angel City, it felt like had maybe stabilized under Sam Lady. And now they've got this future lined up. And so we'll talk about what it means, his appointment, what the club's looking for. And I think the profile a little bit more of there is now this running trend behind Jonas Eidevall and Jonathan Heraldez of this style of manager being brought in to NWSL. But let's start on Tuesday night because we very rarely come on right off the back of a game. We get to do post-game coverage like a normal show that we could be doing other times. And if you missed it, I have my Monday recap every single weekend, coming off the weekend podcast right now only. So you can go there and get some immediate reaction coverage all the time with that. But Jordan, Gotham won 4-1 on Friday night. So they righted the ship. Everything's fine. Esther is in form. Gotham is starting to cruise. They've moved into the top 4 of the table. They're going in one direction. Portland, tough loss to Seattle on the weekend in a rivalry game, also on Friday night. And so they're trying to figure themselves out. We don't know who Portland is. We don't know how they're going to find their feet, especially offensively. That's the story, right? Tuesday, we already know. We know what the setup's going to be. It's going to be a Gotham 2-1 win, maybe 1-0. False. We had 2 goals in a 80-second span in the 6th and the 7th and 8th minute, and then the Portland young attackers exploded, and we're able to get a 4-1 win. Could have been 5 in the end against this Gotham team, just to make sure we were as confused as humanly possible.
Yeah, it felt, we were texting a little bit last night, and you mentioned it's kind of a fun game because it was really open. And I think that's what you get with this new Portland squad. Like, it doesn't look like they are going to play too many games where they're going to be completely in control of the game and dominate the ball. That there will be, because of some of the players that they have now, an openness to the way that they play. But it also is a Gotham team who's coming off a long road trip, right? They went to LA. They have that big emotional victory in LA. Then you travel straight to Portland. And I think it was the right game plan by Rob Gale. Both teams switched up their starting lineups. But I think by going with some younger players with a lot of energy, you could really get to tiring out Gotham, who early in the season to have this kind of road trip is kind of unprecedented. We don't see it very often. So you really test them with some of the speed, the pressure, the defensive work that Portland did. I think that it inevitably just broke Gotham down.
Yeah, Gotham actually ended up only making, I think, one change to the starting lineup between the 2 games. And that...
they did Bruninha.
Yeah, I thought that was bizarre. I thought it would be more rotation because of the necessity of the travel and the trip and how early it is in the season. And it has been interesting for Gotham in that Juan Carlos Armoros, while trying to find his group, has actually stuck to things pretty quickly. Like Lily Real is the starting left back.
Yeah.
Mandy Freeman is not a starter on this team. For a team that lost Tierna Davidson and you think is specifically missing what Mandy Freeman brings to the team of NWSL experience, winning 50-50s, like the physicality of defending.
But she was also injured. So these last 2 games she hasn't played because of injury.
Okay. But had art and had the card, right? Had the red card that pulled her out of the team as well. But it just feels like that they've landed on things. And now this new test was Neely Martin at right back and Taryn Torres in central midfield. It worked against Angel City, and obviously part of that didn't work against Portland. Now, I think both these games are hard to judge to me a little because I think the Angel City Gotham scoreline was not exactly what I saw on the field. Yeah. And you could argue that there was some level of that as well in the Portland game. Like Gotham probably should have been up 2-1 or 3-1 at halftime in the Portland game. And Angel City, I didn't think, the Lily Real or the own goal in the Angel City game was maybe the least dangerous play that turned into a goal I have ever seen on a soccer field. Have you ever seen just a deep cross get deflected for a goal?
No, but Lily Real has been doing that game in and game out. She has been crossing from that spot. And I don't think we will ever see a goal like that again, but I agree with you. I don't feel like Gotham, a 3-1 win, maybe 3-2 even. I think that could have probably been a better scoreline in that Angel City game, but it didn't feel like a 4-0 victory like it was. Sorry, a 3-1 win probably would have felt more real. But it is interesting that you say that Juan Carlos didn't change his starting lineup because this is a guy who notoriously changes his starting lineup. And one of the things that I think he has been bitten by, especially in the back, is there's no options, right? When you lose Tiernan Davidson and then you lose Mandy Freeman to a shorter term injury, well, who else are you going to play back there? I guess Neely Martin is the option that you're going to play. And she did play there at a little bit when she started in the league at Louisville. So she's aware of like how to play outside back. But it just feels like they are trying to get a team out on the field who is healthy, because you can't play Midge Purse that much. Jesse is just coming into the league, probably not quite as fit as you need her to be to play 60 minutes, because she wasn't playing at Manchester United. So now, and Jess Silva's coming off an eye injury, so she's still trying to get back to full fitness. All these players, I don't even think they had the ability really to rotate, because beyond that, you're thinking you have like 15-year-olds that you can play.
That's true. And they have pushed as many rookies kind of as you can into the team. So I think it caught up with Gotham. But at the same time, you mentioned the way Portland set themselves up. And I think this was a great example of the potential that exists in this group. And what I said to you before we got on is what Portland's Thorns reality is right now, which is, I think it's built around a lot of young, exciting attacking talent that will struggle to repeat performances week in and week out, because that's the nature of the step to the pro ranks. But the potential and the ceiling and the way they play and how fun it is so much better than what I had anticipated. And when we did our season previews, when we finished out the season previews, it was right when we had finally gotten the news that Sophia Wilson would be unavailable, Morgan Weaver would be unavailable, and it was, I think I had them in the bottom two in the league, but with no expectation that the way the games would be played, whether there was success or not, would be super enjoyable. And so to have the Kaya Hanks of the world, to have Tordin, who I think's looked really good. I've obviously really enjoyed Turner. Now you have Ali Du come into the group, gets a goal in this game. I think showed some really interesting aspects to her game in that central attacking area. And then Castellanos sort of stirring the whole drink from that center forward position. Like, Portland's must watch. And whether it's going to be 4 goals every week, I would be shocked, but like, it's enjoyable to experience.
And I think we should also credit Jaden Perry, the center back, who really got thrown into the fire in the first game of season, saying, okay, go play Kansas City in your first start ever. Good luck. And struggled, as most would do. You would struggle in that environment against those front five, and had some moments that looked good, but there were some moments that she would never like to think about again. And I think since then she has recovered really well. And this is a long-term, like, I think over the past couple of years, I can say outright, like, I don't feel like Portland has built well. And now in this year, with all these changes and some of these bigger name players in the Thorns, like, history leaving in Sauerbrunn, Hubley, Klingenberg, Sinclair, you have this freshness to them, and they could go one or two ways. They went with some really unknown young players. And I think because of that, there's a freedom within this group for them to try things and to buy into what Rob Gale has. And I think that's what we're seeing, is a team that's bought in, willing to do the work, and is going to have a variety to their game. Like, this was a little bit more direct, and it can be direct, but when you play with Sagita, Moultrie, and Coffey in the midfield, that looks a little different, right? And can you control the pace of the game a little bit more? But yeah, I've really enjoyed some of their players. I think Kaya Hanks that goal she scored, first time far post inside of her right foot, like, that was a ridiculous goal. And it feels like we haven't really even seen all that she can do.
Yeah, the ability to finish with your body going away from goal at speed, but to it be clipped so it gets over Berger but doesn't rise over the crossbar. Like, not an easy finish. The hesitation move on the opening goal that she sets up down the left wing, where it's not one speed straight line. It's understanding how to use your speed and then the threat of your speed to open up space. Brunina probably not the best person to be lined up against that. Very much a defender in name only in that position, whether she's playing right back or right wing. But like, Hanks saw the openings, had opportunities later on, I thought read the game well as Gotham pushed numbers into the attack, started to pinch in off the wing when they were in defense so that the transition moments central, Hanks could jump on the end of and use her speed. And like, I mean, I know it's 2 games on the road, but Jess Carter was dragging to keep up with
she was.
Hanks. And it's like, this can only get better as she gets more experience and comfortable and works in professional training environments and all of that. So it was a huge game from her. It was a huge performance. I thought clearly we've talked about Castellanos coming off the front line, being a false 9, creating in the channels as she comes off those positions. It's dangerous. It works. It's interesting because Turner and Hanks can be finishers, but I thought Alidu was a huge, I think in this game showed huge potential, also being comfortable occupying center forward positions when Castellanos drops off the front line, at least just occupying center backs, making runs in that spot, and then later on or earlier on figures out how to get on the end of Hanks's setup.
And I think that's where Castellanos is going to have her most success, is if she's playing with a 10 underneath her where neither one of them want to be a 9 and neither one of them really want to be a 10. They just want to do whatever they want to do then there. And they want to read the play. And I think that those were the moments that I really appreciated with Alidu and with Castellanos is they just read each other's movements. And you're going to see that as the year develops, whoever is around Castellanos, because I've been pretty upfront. Like, I think she has under-delivered. And there has to be a way to get the best out of her because we know she can be a top level player. And maybe this is it. Maybe it's putting her in this space where it's like, yes, these are your defensive responsibilities, but in attack, you two just figure out a way these are the spaces that you can occupy, or a center back. Somebody needs to be occupying a center back. Somebody needs to be stretching. Somebody needs to come into the pocket. Like, whatever it may be for that particular game, they have the intelligence to be able to figure that out. And maybe there needs to be a little bit more freedom in the way that she plays.
You mentioned Jaden Perry, the rough start to the season, comes back all the way around and takes penalty kicks.
Right.
As a rookie center back. I think she said she was 8 for 10 in college and said in training that she could take them. And Rob Gale gave her the opportunity and said, I'm happy to take them whenever it comes up. And it came up and she got the opportunity. I think that's really cool. And it was fun to watch this game. And it was fun to watch, 88th minute, Sam Coffey leading the press out of midfield. Like, yeah, we're not slowing down. We're not stopping. And that's the type of leadership you want to see. She has talked already this season about calling the Becky Sarah-Browns and Christine Sinclairs of the world and talking about how to handle leadership roles and how to handle this experience. But the way this Portland team is set up right now, to me, is one of the prime examples of the positive potential for not having a draft. Because all of these players got to pick a club that they would play for. And if you had taken this cohort of players and you just spread them out through a draft, some would have ended up on Portland, right? Maybe Portland would have traded veterans or future picks because they knew that it wasn't going to be their year and tried to move up in the draft like Washington did last year and get as many picks as possible. But I think you got to see situations like we don't know the full story yet, but Kaya Hanks decided to leave college late, having an incredible year with Wake Forest last year. And I wouldn't be shocked if part of the convo was like her and Portland had engaged earlier and they come back and they're like, Morgan Reaver is out for the year. Sophia Wilson is out for the year. Like, come play now. You will play. And we have a plan to help you get to your ceiling. But like, there's opportunity right now. And so I think some of the flexibility around the process now, we talked about talking about the draft or rookies last week. And so you have me still waiting 2 more weeks, which I am doing. I'm writing my list, but I am waiting. But I do think you see the positivity of that. And for Gotham, right? I think Gotham, one of the things that I think makes sense, like they went all in last year in a win now mode. It wasn't sustainable. Winning maybe would have covered a lot of the cracks where people would have said, okay, I'm not playing as much as I want. I'm not making as much as I want, but fine. I want to be on a winner, and we won. And they didn't. It fell apart, and they turned around and got Lily Reel and Sarah Shapinski and other,
and college, Sophia Cook, who hasn't even played yet,
who they think can be full-time starters like today. Yeah. And I don't know how that would have played out in the draft because you would have had to move pieces that maybe you didn't have, or future draft picks or whatever, to move up in the draft. And I think you see a lot of positivity around all of it. For Gotham, there was some interesting stuff in just, if Neely Martin's playing right back, she can rotate inside. Taryn Torres is covering ground all over the place, happy to be in possession, which I think is positive. But at this point, it feels like maybe a little too easy to play through in the other direction. And so there are still question marks around this Gotham team. They face off against Washington this weekend. And let's talk a little bit about this Washington group. The big game we had circled was the NWSL Championship rematch. Of course, I was going to call it a Commissioner's Cup again. The Challenge Cup.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah, rematch as well. The biggest part of it. Down in Orlando on Saturday afternoon. You were a part of this game, but some of the huge news coming out right before, as we find 11 players on the injured list for Washington, including Trinity Rodman, who then I think it was Steve Goff who put out a report saying that Trinity Rodman is out indefinitely as she steps away from the team full time and travels to London to work on some medical options to try and recover from what has been this nagging back injury for a year plus now for her. And Jordan, we've talked about her injury situation before. It's scary. It's really unfortunate, obviously, for her, but for all of us who want to watch her do what she does at her best.
Yeah, and I think for her is she's desperate to figure out what's going on and not feeling like she's getting the answers where she's at. So she has to go across the world to figure out what's going on with her back. And we didn't know about this. We were on the game, but we weren't told that she, one, wasn't playing, or two, wasn't even with the team. So we didn't know until right before. I don't know if you saw this, but we saw her at a tennis match, like a picture of her at her boyfriend's tennis match. And we're thinking, what in the world is going on? And then the reports come out that she's getting the help in London. And it just felt like a little bit of a chaotic moment. But when you are in a situation, like, I will always advocate for players who are injured and trying to figure out what's going on, because I've been in those shoes and I've been told to keep playing, or that it's okay, and you just know something's wrong and you're not getting to the bottom of it. Go figure it out. Go, even if it is on your own. You get one life, you get one body, and you got to do your best to protect that. And so I give her kudos for going to try to figure out what's going on, because that's got to be scary. It's your back, and every little I don't know if you ever hurt your back, Goss, but like every movement you have hurts when you've hurt your back. And so I hope that she's able to get the help that she can get and just feel like herself again, because that's all you really want when you're injured like that. Yeah.
And it's one of the things we've discussed is like the way she played as well. And I think soccer is such an emotional sport because your personality is in the way you play. And so she plays over the edge because she loves it and it's fun for her. And she doesn't mind the physicality of getting hit. And, she talks about how people love and hitting people, but people love tuning in and watching her face off in the fight with Emily Sonnet in the playoffs. Like that's Trinity Rodman in her happy place, which is doing the things she loves. And a back injury makes all of that impossible. And as you said, it affects everything you do. And obviously the scary thing with backs is like, we don't really know a lot about them still. And we don't know how to affect them. When I've gotten back injuries, it's like, you got to stretch your legs and strengthen your upper core. And you're like, but this is where it hurts. They're like, yeah, we can't do anything about that. Like, you have to work on all of this. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is like an 18-step process. On top of that, then you have 11 players unavailable for this team on the injury report. Some season-ending injuries that we knew about, like an Andy Sullivan, who is always going to miss the year. But Ule Sarr, it sounds like, has had more issues come up as she's attempted to come back after missing basically the entire second half of last year. And then on top of that, you add to Hal Hirschfeld and Casey Kruger, and Lacey Santos came into this game, didn't start with an injury. Ashley Hatch ends up receiving a concussion in the game and has to come out. So this list could be even worse for next week when they do play Gotham. But have you ever seen anything like this they didn't have a full bench and you could start a team outside of goalkeeper pretty much with this 11 that feels like a contend?
6 of their normal starters, 7 if you include Lacey Santos, who is on the bench available after she came on in the second half. That's their starters, and they were all on this list. I've never seen this. The list for their injury report was on a Word doc 3 lines long. Like, this is unbelievable. And if I'm NWSL, if I'm the Washington Spirit, if I'm in their head office, I'm thinking, what is going on? Because this is not normal, Goss. There should not be this many injuries within one team. And maybe it's just a fluke, but you better figure out if it's a fluke or not. Because I think of 2 things. One, this is a business, right? And if your assets are not available to help you win, then that's going to be really difficult to get wins like they just did. Like, that was a monumental win, and we'll talk about it. But 2, these are people, and these are their lives, and this is their livelihood. And you need to make sure that they're getting the best treatment that they can. And knowing Michelle Kang and what she's put into this team, I can imagine that the standard is really high, but I don't know. I'm really curious about what's going on, because that is an unreal list of players who are out.
It is extremely scary, and it is flying in the face of something we've talked specifically about over the last 9 months, which is like Washington has built this project that people want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. And you look at this offseason of players coming on loan to try and help restart their career, get opportunities, or Rebecca Bernal, right, takes this big jump of like the face of her club, the face of her national team. Oh, if I'm going to go to NWSL, I'm going to do it here. Esme Morgan, the same. If you can't keep players on the field, and then the conversation out in the world is like, it's not a place that is safe, not safe, that's the wrong term to use, but like you're not getting the help you need, right, and you're not able to get on the field, then like you're going to start to lose that credibility and that name that you've built, because we spent all of the end of last year and the playoffs and the offseason being like, Michelle Kang has invested in an unprecedented way. Rowdy is an unbelievable atmosphere. Jonathan Heraldez is arguably the best coach on the planet. This is where players want to be. They will find ways to get there if there is opportunity. I think that goes away to some extent if the feeling is you're not getting the treatment that you want to be able to get there. And then, as you said, as a product in a business, you're not putting it out there on the field of they've gotten the results this year. It hasn't been the entertainment product they'd want it to be because they're not able to do the things they want to do. You're not able to sell and market the stars that you want to. And you may not be able to push for the trophies. That is what this is all built on, the playoff runs and hosting championships and hosting challenge cups. Like, that's what a fan base is created around. That's what memories and connections are created around. And it becomes unavailable. Rose Kawasi did return for this game, which is a nice pickup for them. Kawasi showed last year her ability to fill in for a lot of different holes and gaps in the second half of the year. Again, in a signing where we talked about when she signed of like, oh, this is one for the future. And then immediately it became one for the present because of the injury issues that they were dealing with. And Gift Monday comes into the team and ends up getting the winner. So the way I saw this one, and I know you were on the broadcast, so somewhat similar because I heard you all talking about it.
You heard what I said?
Orlando came out and played the game they wanted to play. They were fairly dominant through the first half, could not find the finish. And then the goal comes in a bizarre moment, you could say, but good work from Washington to press high and make Anna Morehouse make a decision. At a minimum, makes the wrong one. And Washington ends up breaking a 22-match home unbeaten streak for this Orlando team. How do you take this result, and how do you extrapolate it out with Orlando, let's say, or is it just sometimes the ball doesn't go your way?
I think that I take 2 things away, one for each team. For the Spirit, we get to talk to the coaches all the time, and we've said this on the broadcast, so I can say it again. Jonathan Heraldez talks a lot about we need to speak the same language. And he said it a lot last year. And what he means is like, if we're going to press, we're going to press. If a player is going to sit back and we're going to wait, we're going to control the tempo with how fast our passes are. And then when we want to lure a team in, maybe it's a little slower, so they start to come. And then that's the language he's talking about, this language of football. And when I watch the Spirit now, even with all these changes, in this game, I felt like they were on the same page. They knew that they were going to have to defend for their lives. And over the last, we can't call it quite a year and a half, but where have Washington been elite? In defensive moments where they've then transitioned into attack, right? That's how Croy Bethune was getting all of her goals and assists. That's Trinity scored a lot. Ule scored a lot in those moments where they would sit in a mid block, win the ball back, and go. But now we're just seeing it in different spots. And I thought this Washington team, the biggest takeaway I got from them is they're going to be hard to break down.
Yep.
When they went to press, like the times that Orlando did have a goal kick, and they would press, like those were some of the best moments for the Spirit. Tara McKeown had Barbara Banda in her back pocket. Like, she had an excellent game. Rebecca Bernal is elite and is going to continue to make this team much better than they could ever have been. I was really confused about the start of the game and the swap of center backs. I think it got much better in the second half when they went back to their normal sides. But I think for the Spirit, I think this team is going to be really good defensively, and that is going to earn them a couple of looks at goal no matter who's on the field. For Orlando, I think that they need to figure out, if a team doesn't give them the space that they want, how are they going to break a team down? Because those chances were there, Goss, but like if you're not scoring consistently when you are playing against a team who's in a little bit of a lower block, are you going to have the year that you had last year? Are you going to fulfill the potential that you have? I think that's the question that I have for Orlando. But I have a lot of faith that they'll figure it out, because if that's really the one thing that you're working on, because everything else looks pretty good, like, that's not a bad place to be.
And if that game gets played out, 9 times out of 10, it's at worst a 0-0 tie. Like, if that's your worst case scenario, that's a pretty high floor for what you're capable of. And I think there's an element, it feels maybe like everyone in NWSL was like, okay, finally one went against you. Like, Orlando has lived on this edge for a while over the last year. They have become experts at closing teams out or seeing out the late tie or the late win. And this time it doesn't happen. But that ability to break down teams in that final third, and we've talked about on the show, to me, that's always the last step, which is the
hardest thing to do.
It's the hardest thing to do. And they built from the other side of the field. They built as an elite defense in their spine, up the middle, then transition goals. Martz is obviously special in her own way, but like, it is the hardest thing to do. It is the thing all great teams have to do, because it's the way people will play you. And specifically for Orlando, it is the thing that they are like finishing on in terms of their game model and development and all of that. It clearly is the thing that they're choosing to end on, or that's the way they built this whole process. So that's always going to be that last piece that comes. But I don't know that you would have said all of last year that like Washington would be the team that could then make that stand out. They did in the final, but they did it because of their possession. Orlando just didn't have the ball enough in the final. And so this was a completely different game. And I think that's, like you said, the exciting part of like, it felt very clear that Tara McKeown has learned from her experiences playing against this team, playing that position, very new to center back position, playing at the international level. She looked more physical, the way she physically engaged Barbara Banda, being the first one to sort of hit rather than get hit, being able to step forward at the right times, cut off angles on long balls so you're not in a foot race straight ahead, but you start to force Banda to take a wider angle. Like, all of those little things that felt like McKeown did to keep them alive in the first half and to keep the team sort of settled and engaged. And then you get into the second half and you're able to create the opportunity, which you have to press. Like, that's an effort thing.
Yeah.
You choose to press that. Anna Morehouse tries to cut back against it, has it taken away, you score. I don't remember what your call was. What did you make of the goal called off for Orlando?
Yeah. You don't remember what my gift Monday
No.
was,
I'm saying I don't remember what your take was on the VAR.
Yeah, I think that the VAR, I felt like I could have seen it go either way. Like, I think that it looked like it was Nadanner. It looked like Nadanner maybe hip checked Bledsoe Oh my gosh, look at me. I'm just like, Kingsbury. I said her maiden name. It looked like Nadaner hip checked Kingsbury, and that obstructed her from having a route at the ball. And we got to talk to Pro yesterday, and I asked about that, and they were like, well, things are heightened in the box, right? Like everything is heightened, especially around a goalkeeper, because they, if they can't, if they don't have, if they're obstructed like that, their job is to protect the goal. And if there is no goalkeeper in the right place, like it's probably not lack of trying. It's probably the goalie's trying and they can't get there. And so they said it was an obstruction call. They were happy with it. But I think to me, it looked like it probably could have gone either way.
Wait.
Like it looked like maybe there was a push from the Spirit player into Nadaner, into Kingsbury. So I could see, depending on the referee, that could have gone in a different direction.
So what was the language that they used there of?
I have to find my notes. They're right here. You want me to grab them?
Sure. Yeah.
Hold, please.
As Jordan goes along, this is great radio for everyone. And shout out to Douglas in the chat, talking goalie interference in hockey as well. My rough take was I thought it was a poor call. I didn't think it was worth overturning, and I thought that Nadaner has the right to try and get under the ball and be a part of the play, and the contact doesn't come out
for the ball.
But the contact also doesn't come in a way in which it's like you're here and all of a sudden you're reaching out and pushing or grabbing. It was like backing towards where the ball ends up being, and the goalie is there as well. Sorry, hit us with that language, and then I can understand why I'm completely wrong.
They just said because of the situation inside the box, contact with the goalkeeper, their idea of contact is heightened. So if there is contact with the goalkeeper, they are going to see it. Their senses are heightened to that, right? And there was clearly contact with the goalkeeper. And to me, she was obstructed from having, if that contact wouldn't have happened, she would have gotten the ball and it wouldn't have just like thrown it into a defender's head that bounced in. I don't think she would have done that.
Yes.
So,
okay.
I get that. But I also feel like, I agree with you. Like that, this is where I think there's a little confusion is like, is there enough evidence that should be overturned because it was, I don't know that.
Yeah.
It was a tough call for the Pride.
It's one of those where I get the point there being basically like now in this situation, we are leaning 60% towards if there's contact, the goalie got fouled. Problem being, if Aubrey Kingsbury comes out and punches, and the goalie chooses to make a motion and makes contact, is that on the player? And we all know a million whistles go every corner kick. There's a penalty and a foul on every corner kick somewhere in the box. Like all of this happens. And I thought this is a bad example. If I was giving examples of this to a refereeing course or to fans who don't know, I would not choose this one because I don't think it really fits into is just screening the keeper for the sake of screening the keeper and making life chaotic. And if that's the case, maybe at some point we have to talk about you cannot be inside this 3-yard line to the goal line, because what's the world in which the player who's standing in front of the goal on the line is not going to make contact with the goalkeeper if that's, where the ball gets played?
Yeah. I think I don't know. I'm not, thank goodness I'm not a referee, but I think if maybe she comes, because of the angle at which the ball was coming, right? It was coming back across the face of goal onto the far post. So Kingsbury was going backwards to try, to her right to try to save it. And I felt like Nadaner was coming back into the goal into Kingsbury.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were going at the same, like they weren't parallel to each other. There was clear contact there. Right. And I think that because there was contact and it obstructed Kingsbury, then that was going to be the call. Yeah.
We left NWSL Championship talking about whether Lacey Santos got fouled or not in the attacking half, leading to the play that led to Barbara Vanda's goal. So now you get to even it up. Either way, it is a monumental result for Washington. Yeah. It is a tentpole moment, I think, as a group to say whatever challenges we are facing, we as a group can play above our level and overcome it. And I think that's a lot for Jonathan Haraldes to lean on. I think for Orlando, you break a 22-match home unbeaten streak. But in this way, against a team that's a contender, I don't think it's going to sit with you too long if you're able to turn around and get a new performance. And that's going to be an opportunity for them on Friday night, which we will preview coming up. In the meantime, while this happened, out in Kansas City, KC Current took advantage and they moved to the top of the NWSL table by themselves. A 2-0 win for them, another early goal, another shutout. We'll talk about the defense and all of that, but it was a 2-0 win over Houston this time, a goal either side of halftime. Lola Bonta with the ballerina pirouette this time, coming out of the penalty kick that she put away, second straight penalty kick for her as well. And the KC Current, I think it feels very clear, stand alone right now as the best team in NWSL.
Yep, they're there. Only them at the top of the standings, the last team to be undefeated. And there's this, I think, similarly to what we felt about Kansas City and Orlando last year, is there is a little bit of a fear factor when teams play them. And I think it is a lot of teams, rightfully so, change the way that they play. Mm. A lot of the teams actually just don't change the way they play, but you can tell that they're playing scared.
Yeah.
And they're thinking about all the bad things that can happen, as opposed to like, we're on the same playing field as this team and we can go in there and break through their lines and play confident. And I feel like we've seen that a couple of times now where teams just almost, it feels like they deflate quickly because there's just so much pressure from Kansas City. They have so many different ways that they can hurt you. And teams are like, if they don't change their structure, they definitely change their mentality, because it doesn't look like they really believe at moments that they can beat this current squad.
And that's what we saw from Houston. And I took it in, I think you can take it in two different ways. I think one way you can take it is what we sort of just said about Washington, which was, they are probably right now, the way they're set up and the experience they have, they're probably not capable of opening up the game and crushing Kansas City in possession, and therefore to choose not to. I actually think they defended fairly cleanly in this game for the most part. So you could look at it on the one hand and say, okay, they're better at this thing we thought they'd be bad at than expected, which is a club in your bag, which sort of can give you a little bit of confidence even though they don't get the result. Or you could go the flip side, which is, for a young group under a new manager who was going to live and die by these fundamentals and try and jump up the table, and a way to do that is to change your style. Having stepped away from it so quickly is a little worrying. Which side of that do you fall on?
I feel like I still have hope for Houston and what they are building there, but I just don't think it's as easy as it looks sometimes to take a team with a new coach and to get players to come together. Let's be real here. Seb Hines had 2.5 years to really build a team before we were seeing the fruits of that labor.
And he was at the club before that.
And yes, we can see other coaches come in and see something spark right away, but I don't think that's the reality within every single organization. So I want them to stick to what they're doing. And there has to be a balance and a knowledge, especially from veteran players, of like, okay, we're going to try our best to be a possession dominant team, which Houston wants to be, right? But there are going to be times in games where that doesn't make sense. And that's okay if it doesn't make sense. And we can be a little bit more direct there. And then as long as a unit, we trust each other of those moments of like playing through versus playing direct, we just stick together and we go together. Like if it is direct, okay, let's step our lines up and let's go press a little bit higher and see if we can win the ball back in a better place. If we decide to play through, let's make sure our passing structure and our help off the ball is in good places so we have the ability to play through. I just think that Houston needs to stick to it because they do have the players to play that way. But it's not going to be easy at moments, and you're going to, like, you don't want to get blown out by Kansas City, but they play, who are they playing this weekend?
We just talked about it. Do they play Chicago?
I know, we just talked about it. Utah. Like, this is a great opportunity to just be yourself and take some of what you've learned from all these different games. I just think that it's building.
Yeah.
And we all thought it was going to be like, oh, right away, Houston is going to be this great team. No, it takes a little bit of time. And I still think they have the right pieces. They just have to stay bought in. And gosh, I'm going to be real. Their big name players need to step up.
Yeah. It's also interesting, though, because it's like, so Diana Ordonez and Messiah Bright right now are trading off the center forward position. So it's like they both need to step up, but which one will? And are they being put in the right situations? And obviously, this whole thing, a lot of it's built around Yasmin Ryan, who's just never had to be this individual in a group, at least expected this way. She was last year for Gotham, but it was unexpected. And then injuries occurred. And then she ended up elevating to that spot. And so you don't want to go to Kansas City and get killed, but also like you do want to stick to who you are. And I think one of the things that's tough with Houston right now is just a lot of what I feel like I'm seeing from San Diego is what I expected to see from Houston. So you are completely right in like having patience and it taking time and building. Then you've got a first-year manager on a team that struggled last year and fire-sailed their whole roster and flipped the team, and they have been one of the most fun teams to watch. And they went to Orlando and stuck to their guns, and I thought played one of the better games we have seen and just couldn't get the result. And so that's sort of the balance you have to find. But there's a moment in this game in the 18th minute. I think it's the first time Houston really built through Kansas City's pressure, and they get higher up the field. They bounce off of Bright at midfield. They're able to get it over the top to Ryan, who's waiting for help, has it taken away. Shoinga picks up the ball, and all of a sudden it's a potential penalty kick the other way, which Jill Loyden was right on top of, which I don't know, the VAR referee didn't see, whatever. But like you felt the danger immediately. You're like, oh, Houston, they broke lines. They opened up the game. And within 15 seconds, you've got Shoinga in space, and it's like all hands on deck. And this is, I think, to me, obviously, clearly the best team right now. And Davina is playing MVP level, and B is back in the team. And it's really tough. 3 penalties in 5 games for this Kansas City team. I've seen it be a little conversation. To me, teams that play aggressive, that play in the attacking third, and that play direct will always earn penalties. And so you can complain about that stuff, but you got to go and look at intent and style. And maybe over a long season, there is some outliers that might be a little bit weird, but often they're very explainable of this team attacks people and attacks people in the box, or this team makes you play in your box so often that mistakes become penalties. And that's the case right now for Kansas City. They're fun to watch. And then defensively, 401-minute shutout streak. It is the franchise record. The record in NWSL was set last year by Orlando at 538 minutes. So you're basically 2 games away, less. I don't know that Kansas City gets there, but what a sea change from last year, which was we're going to beat you 6-4, 6-5 to a 401-minute shutout streak to start the year.
And just remember last year, we were every broadcast call, which, you know, every week different broadcasters are talking to these coaches. So Vlatko and Anofsky, I think, for 6 weeks in a row had to answer, well, what's going on with defensive corner kicks? You guys keep giving up goals on defensive corner kicks. You know, we have to ask these questions. Like, are you changing your structure? Are you changing your mentality? What's going to be the difference? Because they gave up so many set piece goals.
Yeah.
And that is not the case this year. And there feels like there is a different mentality about this team when it comes to how they defend set pieces, really just how they defend in general. And they have become a really cohesive group from Lorena all the way up to Shoinga up front. Like, this team is hard to break down and they are hard to stop.
They are a juggernaut right now, and they're going to look to continue to do so once again this weekend. Let's go off the field, though, now. Angel City, they're looking for their turnaround, their rebuild, and we finally have official confirmation of who will be in charge. Of course, Mark Parsons, hired as the head of the sporting side of things in December. brought in Sam Lady as the interim manager, had mentioned in an article a few weeks ago that they were down to their final few options, and a couple of them were going to be unavailable. And the assumption was that was because they were coaching full-time over in Europe and waiting for the end of the season, and that is the reality. So Alexander Straus, Norwegian-born, came up through the Norwegian leagues, was a head coach in Norway, and then took over Bayern Munich in Germany and helped turn the club around in a league that was fully dominated by Wolfsburg, has won the last 2 Bundesliga titles, and the expectation is that they are on the road to winning a third one this year, and he will then take over things in LA for Angel City officially on June 1st. He is the first NWSL head coach with Bundesliga experiences as well as the first Norwegian coach, which is a little bit shocking, but a 49-year-old coming over to take over things in Angel City. Jordan, I have to say, obviously the name wasn't sure who it would be, but I think in the end, the profile was probably what I expected after the way Mark Parsons has talked about this and the timeline of what has gone on. Once you blew through the start of the season, you assumed it was going to be a European head coach who wasn't coming over anyway.
Yeah, I think with how many options there are or places there are to be a head coach, I think there's very few like really truly good head coaches, like elite head coaches in the women's game yet. Are there good head coaches? Yes, but elite to like really turn heads. And I think that this is a good signing. To be fair, I don't know much about Straus and what he can offer in his style of play, but I know German football, and I know it is very structured, which I feel like we've seen a different structure to Angel City already this year. Good mentality, good work rate, and Bayern championships. And this Angel City team they know that this is a really good squad and they want to win championships. So you bring someone in with championship experience, and yeah, we'll see what he can do in LA when all the lights and the stars are looking his way.
It hasn't worked out yet for this club, and so the hope is this is start of the formula that puts it all together. And obviously, I think what's clearly been set up is like Mark Parsons, the sporting, ethos of everything, and that's what allows you to have the flexibility to do this because you have someone who's around that's setting this style, and you assume that Straus will come into what has already been put into play. We've seen some bright spots from this Angel City group. They're very young. And so your hope is that you're now bringing a manager in for a long time. I think that you can build this whole thing with the Thompsons and with Fuller and with Turner and all of these options that, like, can we put something together for 5 years that ends up being something great? And it feels like what he built at Bayern is the case of sort of a blank slate, but also having these pieces that you're working with, having a history, but not having it be recently as successful as you'd want it to be, and then being able to get over the line and be able to win things against some of the toughest teams in the world. And so that's what Angel City's hoping that this whole thing is geared around. But I do find it interesting. You're not wrong in, like, are there that many elite coaches? I think of this with all sports. I think there are, I think for the most part, sports come down 90% to talent and health. And like coaching is 10%. Sometimes in soccer, you can convince me it's more. And a lot of times it's just right place, right time, or right fit. And then sometimes it's like this coach gives a clear advantage to the teams that they coach. If there are so few of them, I think at some point you're kind of guessing and you're hoping. And if that's the case, I think it would be nice to guess and hope with people more often who are associated with the league, because part of what you're building with NWSL is trying to promote the fact that the soccer structure here is good enough. So if you're saying the players are good enough and the medical trainers are good enough and the broadcasters are good enough, at some point you also have to state as a league that the coaches are good enough. And I think part of that is making sure former players are put into pathways to become future coaches, right? How many times are we going to hear that Bev Yanez is the only former NWSL coach? Like, there should be more of that. And then the other is opportunity. And so I think if you look at it and you say, okay, this is sort of the third straight male European coach from a big club to come over behind Jonas Eideval and Jonathan Heraldez, both of them have been successful. I get it. If you're trying to put together a team to finally be competitive in a way Angel City expects to, looking at what Jonas Eideval has done so far and Jonathan Heraldez has done, it's pretty attractive. But I think there are more than one way to go about this. And I think if you're trying to be proactive as clubs, you got to find ways to give other opportunities to people who maybe they haven't proven they can do it yet. But Alexander Straus is not, like, he's never been around NWSL. So, like, none of this is a given.
Yeah. And let's remember there's always, a Fran Alonso in there. Like, it's not every coach from Europe is going to be the best coach, right? And, I think Jimmy Koenraerts is still, he was great last year. Is he going to be the answer for this Utah team? And can he continue to develop as he needs this Utah team to develop? Like, no matter who you choose as your head coach, there are risks associated with it. And I am of the belief that I'm kind of I like our nation and like what we can offer when it comes to our talent, when it comes to, you mentioned broadcasters. Like, I think broadcasters should broadcast U.S. women's soccer games, should broadcast in our league. I think that we should have, I think our head coach of our national teams should be from from the United States. That's just my opinion. And that's what I think, because if you're building these players up and they're good enough to be on the national team, there should be somebody building them up at some point that's good enough to coach that team. And so I think maybe coaches in America get overlooked. It seems like right now they do. I know Laura Harvey has talked about females getting overlooked and maybe a little bit more adamant about having a female as opposed to an American, right? Like, just a female coach. But there are very few female coaches. There's just not as many female coaches as male coaches. So I don't know what Angel City's search looked like, but I do think there are really good coaches in the United States that could do a good job in NWSL, might not have NWSL experience, but are good coaches. Yeah. Just like Alexander Straus is a good coach.
Yeah.
Are they elite? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that you have to prove that you're elite.
And one of the things I think that's hard for me is you have a setup right now where in NWSL you don't have academy, so you don't have opportunities for former players to get coaching opportunity. Because obviously I do a lot of coverage around Major League Soccer, and that's the path. That's the first step. If you really want to coach, you are probably going to coach. A lot of players coach in around the academy while they're currently playing. Now, there are massive academies around the U.S. that many NWSL current players choose to run camps for or coach if they want to. So that does exist, or their college, whatever it is. But then the next piece is you become an assistant. It's a little bit harder when coaches that are building staffs don't have connections inside the league because they haven't been here before. You're not going to make former players your assistants that you've never worked with. So yeah, maybe in 5 years, right? Jonathan Heraldez and Alexander Straus, their staffs are all former players in NWSL who they've liked and worked with and are connected to. But you have cut that off slightly because their number one job is to build a staff that they're comfortable with. And obviously this is a bad example because we're talking about your blah, blah, blah. But like Juan Carlos Armoros turning to a former player as a goalkeeper coach who now had to be technically a backup goalkeeper last night in the game. So doing a little double. I think she was coaching set pieces from the sideline while wearing the jersey and everything as well. But like these are the ways you get people into these spaces. And it seems a little bit harder to do that. That does not mean, like we have said a million times, that it would or won't be successful either way. It's just the reality of where we sit right now. Angel City will be back out on the field to start the weekend on Friday night. They will do so against Orlando, the lone game on Friday night, that one at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Bounce back opportunity for both teams. I thought Angel City played okay against Gotham. I actually thought their defensive structure was okay. I thought between the two boxes, they were fine. I thought you clearly saw the difference when Alyssa Thompson is and is not in this team.
Yes.
She is already a game changer. And so I think losing the focus on her, which now puts more numbers in front of a Kennedy Fuller, puts more numbers centrally, and losing the threat in transition and then just her pure goal scoring ability, it just felt for Angel City a little bit less dangerous the whole game. And there's no way to fix things if you're missing a superstar. So your hope is that she's available for this one.
Yeah. And I didn't really agree with making, you don't have Alyssa Thompson. So then you actually switch two players. You bring Giselle Thompson up front. You bring Maria in as an outside back. And it felt like you could have just kept Giselle and played somebody else. Like put Julie Dufour out there and put Katie Zellum as a winger, tucking it inside and playing in the pocket.
Or Kennedy Fuller out wide.
Or Kennedy Fuller. It didn't need to be two changes because one player was unavailable. And I felt like the back line.
Well, they'd already written Thompson in pen, so they had no choice.
Yeah, so you just had to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. So I do think, I hope the back line is, whether or not Alyssa Thompson is available, I hope the back line's back to what it was before, because that's arguably the fastest back line in NWSL with all of those players.
Right, having Savvy King and Sarah Gordon as center backs.
And Vignola and Thompson. That's a really speedy back line. But they play high. And this is the question. I asked Sam Lady, are you going to change that? And he's like, that's how we want to play. Well, you're probably going to have to change that against Orlando, or you're going to get smoked. So does Angel City adjust their line of their back line and how high up on the field they are and how much space they give in behind them? Because that's going to be a real tell against this Orlando team. Maybe not against Houston, maybe not even against Gotham, because I don't think Gotham hurt them too many moments in that. But how high is their back line? And then also Angel City has to clean up set pieces. They give away yet another goal on an Acer corner kick. They've given up too many goals on set pieces. They look susceptible, and Orlando will punish you. It's either banned at the back post, McCutcheon following up, or a plethora of other options who are thirsty for goals.
Highlighted in Daner. Operating around your goalkeeper as well.
Operating around the goalkeeper, hopefully not fouling this time.
Yeah, this has the danger to be bad for Angel City. It also has the opportunity to be like, no, we are here. Because there has been moments like that so far this season where the possession's been good. They've had the group out there that they want, and you see the path forward and you see the direction to all of it. This is an opportunity to do that. So that's the big game on Friday night. On Saturday, two big games that we wanted to point out. First, Washington against Gotham. We talked about the injuries with Washington. You're hoping more pieces are available. You're hoping even more players come back. I don't know that I mentioned, but the conversation before the game, Jonathan Heraldez said Croy Bethune's still 2 games away. That was before the Orlando game, so this might be the last game, and there's no guarantee with any of that, but that's really promising for them. Fingers crossed that Casey Kruger or Hal Hirschfeld can get closer. We don't have a report yet on Ashley Hatch, which would be backbreaking. She has buoyed a lot of what this team has lost in her goal scoring, her ability to hold the ball high, to get them higher up the field, to release pressure, her flexibility to play all across the field as well. That would be a massive loss for this team. And this, of course, is a rematch of the semifinals in the playoffs last year, which was fiery, was electric, went to extra time, went to penalties, had, the argument between Sonnet and Trini Rodman and everyone else. Like, this is one of the unfortunate things about the injuries is we built up last week. You could build up this week. Like, there's all these great games with all these great storylines. We're losing a little bit of it, but the points still count. Like, all of this still matters. And I think you're looking at teams that are going to be jockeying like we saw last year in that top 4, and we saw how much home field advantage means and how big these games are even early in the season.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting one because it does feel like Gotham is getting healthier, and are they able to utilize Jace and Purse for some more minutes? Because I know they're coming on late as subs, but it does feel like every time those two have come on, there is a intensity, a bite about Gotham that's really interesting. But Washington's hard to break down. I don't care who's going to be out there. I just talked about it. I think that they have a really good structure. They understand how they want to play. And this is going to be, I think this could prove to be a better game than the Orlando one, because I think both teams will feel like they can go after each other a little bit more. Like maybe Washington will be a little bit less hesitant to be
Yeah.
like so back.
Yeah.
Like it might be slightly more open.
And your hope would be Lacey Santos can start, maybe Rose
Yeah.
Kowalski can go from the start. So yeah, you have more threat going forward, more possession, which allows you to open up a little bit. And what we have seen the last two games, Gotham, it feels like if you open up, we're fine, right?
Yeah, they're like, let's go. Let's turn
And
this into a sprint.
and if you start a Midge Purse, then it's probably that takes it to another level because she wants the game to be open and will attack 1v1. Esther scored in the last game, just is playing at an unbelievable level and is doing so much for this group. There's not a ton of creativity around her right now individually. And she's like on a heater that I think if it continues, we'll start to get into the Shawinga Banda conversations of the best forwards. I mean, obviously she's already around there, but like pushing as the best forwards in this league. The final game we wanted to note here, Bay versus Seattle, is the late game, 10 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday night. On the field, this is super interesting. These are two teams I think that kind of sit around each other, both in perception and in points, and they've gone up and down. They both got 1-0 wins this weekend. For Seattle, the rivalry game against Portland. For Bay, they went on the road at North Carolina and got a win after the disappointing performance against Chicago. But they're both still figuring themselves out. And we got the big announcement from Bay that they are going to be playing in front of, they hope, a sold-out Oracle Field. I think that's the name of the stadium. It is the San Francisco Giants Stadium. It is on the water in San Francisco, and its capacity is high. What we saw with Wrigley last year, they actually played in that game, but they talked about it. The geography is way different. Like San Jose is not in San Francisco, and so you connect yourself to maybe other fans who can't make the trip to come see you. You also get connected closer to the East Bay and Oakland and all of that. And these tentpole events that we saw the buildup and the experience for Chicago around this. This is a really cool thing, I think, for Bay to do.
And Bay's licking their chops because they went into Wrigley and they won that. So they're thinking, hey, maybe we're just really good at playing in baseball stadiums. So I think the capacity they were saying something is like 40,000.
Yeah.
So I feel like they could sell that out, and this could in August, which August in San Francisco, all I got to say is burr. That is cold. It is going to be
love that.
Yeah, chilly night. But
those are the times I wish I lived there. Like cold is how you attract me. I don't want the heat. I don't want the sun.
We are such opposite people.
And you live in the mountains and I live at the beach.
I know. It's so funny. But yeah, that should be a fun spectacle. And hopefully they get a sellout there. But this Bay Seattle game, I'm intrigued, Goss, because both of these teams have shown multiple formations this year. Seattle have shown, I think Laura Harvey has gotten a lot of the tactics right in the games. In the last game against Portland, they go man for man in the middle of midfield and really like shook Portland up. And I don't think Portland could figure out how to play through their midfielders in those moments. Will they do that against Bay, who have attacking midfielder and Taylor Huff, who's like been everywhere and done everything, and Kiki Pickett only scores bangers? Like, I think that this midfield poses problems for Seattle, and I'm interested to see what this matchup actually looks like, because I think there's a variety of ways that each of these teams can come in and play.
Yeah, I like, for starters, for Seattle, it felt way different with Lynn Biondolo in the team. All the games she has played, it's a different threat. It's a way in which she gets on the end of through balls that now changes where a backline steps, the way you play. It's an outlet as well for midfielders. Meza is a ball-winning dominant force, and then it's already, you know where you can go with it. Like, even if you don't look up and play the right ball, it's a threat, and then Darlene can follow that up and give you another. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff of what Seattle's been able to put together so far, and I think a lot of that is where I'd like to see them lean. And like I talked about with Orlando, like start with the defensive base and the transition ability. I would love to see more from Haidema. We just haven't seen it like in NWSL kind of across the board.
Yeah,
and my hope is the 2 forward setup helps her get there.
Yeah, and they actually I thought they played a 4-3-3 with Haidema as a winger, but tucked inside a lot. And like, because then it could isolate Darlene. It could allow Maddie Curry to get higher. And I don't know. I don't know what Heidema's best position is. I don't know. She's clearly not a big time goal scorer. It's not her game, which, okay, fine. But is she then better than Serena Gorcevic at playing as a winger and tucking inside and being next to Lynn Biondolo? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, because we haven't seen Serena Gorcevic start instead of Heidema. I just think what Serena Gorcevic can add when it comes to crossing from those areas is a different level than Heidema. So I don't know. I still have questions around Jordan Heidema, but you're spot on when you say that this team looks different. I just think the hold-up play of Biondolo attracts so much attention, and then it allows other players to have more freedom, because on that goal, she's surrounded by 5 players, and she figures out a way to get the ball to Darlene. So
and
it should be a really good one.
And the chance she almost scored where she gets played through, it's a slide rule pass that most players, it's not a threat. Like, you're either not going to beat your player there, or by the time you get there, the goalkeeper is coming out. But with Biondolo's speed, the keeper can't feel like they can come off the line. Like, there's all these question marks that happen because she's on the field, and she looks healthier than at any point last year. We never saw a healthy, or at least comfortable, Lynn Biondolo last season, and now you're seeing it with this group. Last one for you, and then we're going to go. You mentioned Huff with Bay. So fun to watch. Do you have a comp for her of like who she reminds you of, the way she plays? Because there's such force to me with the way she attacks the game both ways. Yeah. And it's like super direct with a ton of quality and skill in there. The only name that came to my mind, but I don't want to say it before you get there. If you have a name you want to go with first.
I have a name, but not on the defensive side. Like, I think it's a different.
So who is it?
You say the name. I think in some of the ways that she attacks, it reminds me of Lauren Holiday.
Oh, okay.
When she played centrally.
Yeah. I was going to say Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Heaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of just like, there's this overwhelming physicality and athleticism and aggression that happens, but it's paired with so much like skill.
Yeah.
Where I think to me, Lauren Holiday I see, but also was a bit more of a passer, and obviously we don't know where Huff's going to go in her career. But a lot of what I see from Huff just feels different than a lot of the other center mids in the league, and it's the way I like to see the position played. So I've really enjoyed watching her, and it's cool that Bay's sort of given her the keys.
Yep. Stay tuned for our rookies list coming
out.
Oh, man,
I cannot wait. It is all I want to do. It's all I want to talk about. They have, of course, added a ton to the league. So thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you, of course, to you, Jordan, for being here. Another great weekend of action coming up. We'll have all your coverage. I'll have the weekend recap. We're working on some interviews and everything else around the game as well. But we love all of you for being here. So we appreciate everyone in the chat. We appreciate everyone listening, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.